Blessings, one and all, and welcome to the Spirit Side Podcast. I'm Paul James Caden, and that is something I never thought I would say again in a podcast intro. But I said there were changes coming this week to the show, and this is part of the show, getting back, renewing, and revamping the Spirit Side. Some of you may know, some of you may not know that the Spirit Side was my very first podcast that I ever did, and I loved that show. Unfortunately, it got wrapped up in the YouTube community when I was posting my podcast over there, and it really got wrapped up in a lot of the conspiracy subjects. And I was friends with a lot of those types of people on YouTube. And I kind of got caught up in, the views, a lot of people listening when you're talking about conspiracy, even though I debunked a lot of conspiracies. But then the bottom kind of dropped out. I saw this movement for what it was. I saw a lot of very spurious behavior out of people that I was associated with in the conspiracy or truth community. And I backed out and I canceled the show. It had become something that I never intended it to be or wanted it to be. But I very much have missed the show. And apparently other people have too, because I still get emails now and then that will say, gee, we really miss the Spirit Side. We wish that you would bring that back the way it was in the beginning. And I hear you. I hear you. It's funny that anytime I fire up the microphone to do a show, whether it was The Mind's Eye or Journey into Spiritualism, any of the various shows that I've tried, it was always right on the tip of my tongue to say, and welcome to the Spirit Side. So it's been like in my DNA. And I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I said if I still feel this way after the Easter holiday, I'm going to resurrect the show. And it feels right, and that's what I'm going to do here today. So, those of you who have been listening to The Mind's Eye, don't worry, the show isn't going to become something different. We're still going to talk about all of those subjects. We're still going to talk about things that are happening in the world, social events, world events from that spiritual perspective. That's very much a part of what the Spirit Side was. So all of that is certainly going to be a part of the show. You're not going to be losing out on those topics as the show turns into something completely different. The only difference is we're going to add a few topics to the subject line, and that would be the paranormal, strange happenings, angel encounters, spiritualism, things of that nature. The Spirit Side was always a very all-inclusive show, and it really was meant to cover a wide variety of spiritual topics. And like I said, it really kind of tripped over itself when it got involved with the truth community over on YouTube, and I just had to put it to sleep, at least for a while. But apparently it's still alive and well somewhere in the ether and within me. And as I said, this feels right, and I hope that the show going forward from here, returning to its roots, is something that all of you will enjoy listening to, and newcomers to the show will enjoy also. And, speaking of the Spirit Side tripping up in the truth community years back when I canceled the show, That's something I want to talk about here in our opening podcast, getting back to the spirit side. I want to talk about truth beguiled. And what does beguiled mean? I mean, really, it means to be confused, to not know. Um, and it also means to lead by trickery or flattery or mislead someone. So, truth beguiled, it's a real problem in our world today. And I'm not popular for saying this at all. The YouTube community pretty much has abandoned my show because I don't support the great, mental and spiritual delusions that go on over there. In order to have any kind of career or popularity on YouTube and even on other platforms, with podcasting, you either have to be a staunch conspiracy theorist or you have to be a yogi, someone who's really into the whole Kundalini thing. And, you know, um, I don't know if I may speak honestly. It seems that the people who get the greatest following are those who toot their own horns the loudest. People that seem to be, and I've been talking to a couple of people about this that brought this to my attention, and I said, yes, I have noticed this, that sadly, egotism and arrogance has run amok in our world today, and people seem to be drawn to it. Whether these people are telling us the truth or not, as long as they seem like they're sure of themselves, as long as they seem like they know what they're talking about. And I also find it strange that some of these podcasters and vlog creators uh, berate their audiences. You're not as smart as I am if you don't know what I know, if you don't haven't had the experiences that I've had. You're going to be lost, alienated from God if you don't follow the spiritual instructions that I've received and now that I'm giving you. And I will see them berate and belittle and bash and just crush anyone in the comment section that dares raise a question that says, well, gee, I don't really know about that. It doesn't sound quite right to me. These people get blocked, they get bashed. And, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this is no way to treat people. We all argue from time to time. Have I gotten annoyed in comments on YouTube and said, look, and kind of blasted someone? Sure, I have. But I've never bashed someone so badly as I see some of these other people do. And it takes a lot for me to do that. People that might keep coming back and back and back, and no matter how friendly or how reasonable you try to be in the conversation, it just spirals into more and more misconceptions, judging, criticizing, and I understand that we're all human beings, and that's going to annoy anybody after a while. But I try very hard not to go there. I'll just get rid of the comment. I won't engage. Um, but never would I sit there and tell somebody, what a pitiful, lost, stupid, ignorant soul they are because, well, they just don't know this incredible truth that I know. And I don't understand why people want to be berated and put down or live in the shadow of their chosen teachers or gurus, made to feel like, the hopeless, mindless grasshopper who knows nothing sitting at the feet of this great YouTube, or internet master. I just can't conceive of that. And I think there's something really wrong. And I think it's pressured a lot of people because you see a lot of people that are against this sort of thing. And you might not talk to them for, a couple of weeks or a month. And then you see them again and they're like a completely different person. And they've bought into this whole narrative of conspiracy or a very strange Gnostic amalgamation of Christianity that I've talked about on some of my other shows on the Mind's Eye. And I said there during Easter week that I was going to do a show explaining where a lot of this Gnostic idea came from in the modern world and in modern Christianity. And I'm still going to do that show. I'm going to carry that over. I'm still going to talk about that because it's a very big problem in our world. And as I always say, by their fruits you shall know them. And the people that buy into that narrative are just as angry and fearful and judgmental as many people in the truth community camps. And these people are supposed to have truth. They refer to themselves as being awake or woke. But the last time I checked, being awake or woke makes you more wise, but also it makes you more humble, more loving, more compassionate. You become more Christ-like. You don't become this raging, insulting, egocentric, you're all fools because you disagree with me type of attitude. And that's what I see a lot going on. And that's why I say truth beguiled. Because is this the way we gain an audience today? We flatter people, we lead them by trickery, and I consider it to be trickery when we threaten the audience. How would I feel sitting here going, yeah, if you're not listening to the mind's eye or the spirit side, if you're not listening to me, well, by God, you're in a whole lot of spiritual trouble and you're lost and you're asleep and you're going to perish and you're going to be taken advantage of and you're weak. And people would apparently, from what I see, will follow that. But why would anybody want that? I mean, look, most of the people that have listened to all of my shows over a period of time know that when I was younger, I had this angelic experience that literally changed my life. It's why I'm doing this today. I don't make any money podcasting. I do it on my own time, my own dime, and I do it, as I've always said, as kind of a ministry. Just anybody that comes across it, anybody that listens, anybody that wants to hear, if it helps, if it makes sense, if it clarifies something for someone, then I've done my job. If it leads someone back to the light, back to the love of God, not the angry, berating version of God that we have so much of today, even under the guise of love and light in some of the yogi movements. But the true love of God that really makes us humble and compassionate and kind and good-hearted and really wanting to help those around us, even if they don't agree with us, even if they might not be the greatest people If someone needs help, give them help. That's what we're supposed to do. So if my shows do any of those things or more in a positive way for anybody out there, one person, I've always said from the beginning, then I've done my job. And I'm doing it because that experience I had in my life changed my life. And I have to be honest, I had that experience and I've never, from the heart, I'm not snowballing anybody here. I've never looked at myself as being better than anybody else. I've never looked at myself, and I don't care if anybody believes my story or thinks it was made up. That's fine. There will be people who will hear it and believe it, and those who will hear it and say, oh, this guy's crazy. Just another one of these. I know what my experience was. I know what touched my heart and my life and changed my life. And it never made me feel superior. It never made me feel like because I had this experience, I know something that everyone else doesn't. So I'm somehow I'm smarter, I'm more woke than everybody else because I had this angelic experience. And see, that's what confuses me about a lot of these people that say they've heard from God, they're getting instructions from the Father to give to their audience members. They've, had all these incredible divine encounters, but yet the egotism and the berating and the harshness and the superiority complex comes through in so many of them. And that's what always makes me step back and go, I don't understand. Because I know what I experienced and it never made me feel that way. But I'll tell you how it does make me feel and how it did make me feel. And I say this to God every day in prayer. I say, God, my prayer today for humanity is that everybody in the world could experience for 1 minute that love that I felt and was shown through that angelic experience. Because once they experience that, they will know the true love of God and they will want nothing else. And they will want everybody else around them and in the world to experience it because it's so peaceful and so beautiful and so accepting of you, no matter who you are, right where you are. Was I perfect when I had this experience? And it was ongoing through different stages of my life. In some of those stages, I was imperfect as imperfect could be. But yet here was this loving being trying to direct me and help me to take a better path. And I just want everybody to feel that kind of love from God, from the angels. It's life-changing, and I've said that time and time and time again on my shows in a way that I can't even really articulate in a way that does it justice. It's just such a wonderful thing, and it fills you with that love and compassion and kindness, and you want nothing more than for other people to feel that, even if you are the vessel they feel it through for a minute, through some random act of kindness or just listening or being there. And I don't talk about my experience a lot, but maybe I should, because I know what I experienced. I know how it felt. I know how it affected my life. And it was the thing that many of you heard me say on my shows before. And if you're new to the show, as I went through various stages with religion in my life, I would hear pastors and priests and people, say all these things about God, how, angry and, judging and, wrathful. Uh, just so many things that there would always be that little part of me inside that would go, but that's not how God is. They know about God through their studies and their theologies and their doctrines and what their churches told them from the pulpits of the world, but they really don't know God. They're just trying to know about God with the mind rather than know God with the heart. And that wasn't a criticism. It just made me feel really, really sad to encounter so many people who say, I believe in God. I'm a Christian. I follow Jesus Christ. Yet they had no clue about that kind of love at all. And it's one of the reasons I talk about these things on my show or the shows I've done, um, at different times, because I have a really hard time listening to a lot of these people, hearing what they're saying, seeing how they treat their followers, their subscribers. And I have a really hard time finding the love of God, the real love of God, and what they're saying, what they're teaching, how they're acting, how they're speaking to people. I mean, I had one of these guys who's very popular on YouTube that, I was friends with, and I'm not going to get into names, but when I started to see some odd things in this whole conspiracy, Gnostic Christianity movement, and I asked a couple questions. I just asked him to clarify a couple things. And I said, gee, that sounded kind of harsh, what you said in that one video. You know, uh, could you kind of elaborate on this a little bit? And this guy just started texting me. He had my phone number. He was going to make an example out of me. How dare me question him? I was afraid of him. I was afraid of his truth. And I was like, dude, where the hell is this coming from? The mask was off. And at first, I thought maybe I should talk about that a little bit, but people didn't want to listen. They wanted their guru, not the truth. And I see a lot of this type of thing. I know one individual. I don't know him well. I've just me and a friend of mine was talking to me on Facebook about this individual who's really into yoga and kundalini, and he comes across like, you know, he's trying to help people, but then one day he shows a video where he's having an event, and there were two girls that were helping set his event up, and they were the only two wearing masks during the uh, pandemic. And he made it his business just to latch into them. He called them stupid. He called them, I think he said, lower intelligence. His words, not mine. If you when you come here with that bullshit on your face, you're disrespecting me. Now, this is a guy in his early mid 50s, and he's berating these two young girls who were 18, 20. You know, I have the really hard time, as I said, finding the love of God and the truth of God in that type of thing. And I always ask myself, if you're really rising in consciousness, if you're getting Christ consciousness of as so many people say they're getting, waking up, becoming more enlightened, returning to the light, then how are you acting? Why are you acting in that particular way? I'm not painting myself a saint. God knows. You know, I have to be honest with the audience. I feel very conscientious to be in front of another person and say, oh, well, here's what I think, or, oh, this greater love. Because I never want to come off to be like arrogant or a know-it-all. I've always been hesitant to talk about my angelic experience in the past because, oh, what if people don't believe it? What if people, start attacking, and I just don't want to deal with that. But then I guess I always kind of go back to something that I've read years ago, that when the Catholic Church sends investigators out to investigate, if someone says they saw an apparition of Mary or Jesus or an angel, if there's something going on, they will send people out to investigate. And most of the investigators say they can tell the frauds from the ones who are telling the truth, because the moment they step up to the fraudulent person and say, are you so and so who saw the apparition? Yes, that's me. And they'll be very, very happy and very free to talk about it. But those who are usually telling the truth are very hesitant to talk about it because they don't really know what context to put it in, how people are going to receive it, what people are going to think. And so I say, well, maybe that's me because I've always been hesitant. But even in saying that, I say, well, gee, am I making myself out to be something that I don't want to make myself out to be? You know, it's kind of a vicious little cycle. But, that's just my thing. I see all this and so much of it going on in the world right now. And the masses are just eating it up. And it seems no one wants to hear what you have to say unless you act that way. And that's really sad and that's really scary. Talk about truth beguiled. Kind of manipulating or scaring your audience into believing what you say, or that you possess some superior knowledge. It was just so funny when I saw this video of this yogi person berating these two young girls. I commented on the video and I said, why would you do this type of thing? It's, you know, uh, certainly not very becoming, and you know, you may disagree with them wearing a mask, but whatever I said, I tried to put it as kind of eloquently as possible, and I was surprised this person answered me back, and it was sad because rather than engage in conversation, the first thing he asks me, well, the only thing he asked me was a bunch of random questions. Have you traveled the world as much as I have? Do you know more about geopolitics than I know? Have you ever gone to the Mayan ruins? Have you ever sat with a yogi master for 3 months on a mountaintop? And I said, and I said, well, that's all well and fine, but it really doesn't address the question at hand, trying to show who has, the bigger set of whoojamacallits. That's not really answering the question or being productive in this kind of conversation. And then, he just kind of shut it down. But, I don't get it. And I guess talking about it in this show, which is something I've always kind of really liked about the spirit side, is it can be very formal, but also very informal, like a talk radio show where I just turn on the mic and talk about what's on my mind. Naturally, whatever comes out, no editing, just raw. You get me as I am. And I really enjoy these kind of conversations. And I hope that this conversation will make some of us at least think. When we see this kind of thing, if we're tempted to follow this kind of thing, if we're already following, after someone who has that kind of personality, to really start taking out that measuring stick of the love of God and what that really means, and start measuring people's actions and words, their personality and their attitude with that yardstick. Because what would divine love be? It would be compassionate. It would be kind. It would be accepting. It would be all those things and more beyond what we could even know. And through my experience, that's certainly what it appears to be, and how it was toward me. And I just see that being so void. And I wonder, are a lot of these people just making it up to make a buck because they're monetized? Are they self-deluded? Are they hearing from another spirit that maybe they think it's divine, but it's not? That's always a possibility too. But truth in our world right now has certainly been beguiled, and I hope we'll all take out that measuring stick of God's love and start measuring what we hear and what we see with it, because I think that's going to make a huge difference in our world and a huge difference in our personal lives, personal spirituality, and personal relationship with God. So I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the comeback of the spirit side. I certainly did enjoy having this conversation, and I'll see you next time. Until then, be safe, be well, and follow the light.